Welcome back to Q&A. Now, he will have the strictest release conditions of any offender in New Zealand history. Stewart Murray Wilson, also known as the Beast of Blenheim, was jailed in 1996 for sex crimes against women, children and animals over 25 years. He can't legally be in prison any longer, so is headed for a house on the grounds of Whanganui prison. So why Whanganui? Because none of his many victims live there. Unfortunately, those responsible for this decision, the surrounding laws don't feel obliged to explain. We wanted to ask corrections boss Ray Smith. They say this isn't the right time and there's little public interest in Wilson outside Whanganui. The parole board, well, they say no one in the board is willing or able to do interviews. Local MP Chester Burrows reckons he's said as much as needed, and reasonably enough, Corrections Minister Anne Tolley is unwell. But Whanganui doesn't want Wilson, and the town's mayor Annette is willing to talk. So a very good morning to you. Do you trust Corrections to keep Wilson to these conditions?
I think that they have developed a plan that they think will work. What they haven't managed to do is convince the Wanganui community that it will work.
Do you think it will work?
I think that, according to what I've been told, they will be able to manage him in the best possible way. Unfortunately, with the new technology they're talking about, the GPS, it hasn't been tested in New Zealand yet, and understandably the people of Wanganui are concerned, and more particularly the people that live in the community around the prison at Kaitoki.
So in other words, no, you don't think they're able to hold him to these conditions?
I think they possibly can, but they haven't managed to convince the people that live nearby.
Let's talk about some of the things that are being said outside Whanganui. Peter Williams, QC of the Howard League, says he's disgusted at the baying wolf-like mentality. This is not the way a civilised society, town or city carries on. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that's not Wanganui community. There are some members of the Wanganui community that have reacted predictably, and they would in any area. Many people have reacted sensibly, but generally the tone is we haven't got enough information, we weren't given this information in time, we weren't able to discuss it, and we weren't able to come up with the confidence that this would work. What
information do you need? What information have you not got now that you need to either be assured that yes, he is not going to be a threat to the people there, or he still is a threat? What do you need to hear? Well,
we would have preferred to have been advised earlier. We know our community, we know what the concerns are. I'm not convinced that the Corrections Department took into consideration the recreational areas around the prison, or that they actually understood the community size there. And also I think that if we'd been spoken to, we would have been able to understand the dynamics of the Wanganui community and been able to discuss whether or not this would work.
A week ago you said this was just Whanganui's bad luck, Salavi. Now you're saying you'll do anything to stop this happening. What's changed?
The comment about just Wanganui's bad luck was actually in the context of the 3 areas that they told us were considered, and that we had one with a rural prison that they would be able to look after him. I said it was bad luck that we had a rural prison out of those 3 areas. I still don't know for sure what the other areas are. I've seen the media comments. I now understand that Hawke's Bay was one of them, if that is correct. That also has a rural prison. So now we're really interested to know why our rural prison was deemed to be better than Hawke's Bay rural prison.
OK, let's talk about a couple of nuts and bolts things. The house that he's going to stay in is not there yet. It has to be moved onto the grounds by the prison. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
Presumably that needs some sort of a clearance from council. It needs resource consent, right?
It needs a resource consent and a building consent, and those are currently going through the process.
Why did you grant those then?
They haven't been granted yet. It's still going through the time frame that's allowable.
Will you oppose them?
As far as I'm aware, there's no grounds to oppose them. I've not been made of any legal grounds. Surely that's not a grounds for a resource consent or building consent, but it is still just going through the process. I think the resource consent issue is a minor one. You know, this is the smallest of the issues. The issues are, why was Wanganui chosen? No,
but surely if you have the means, the mechanism somewhere within the council to say, no, that house can't go there, he's got nowhere to live. Isn't that kind of your last recourse?
I don't believe that means he's got nowhere to live. It means that this option won't work. I'm pretty sure there'll be some other options.
What, has the Corrections Department said if there are any other options, or is that their A, B, C, D game?
No, they haven't told us if there are other options, because what they say is this is the conditions of the parole board and it would require a change from the parole board. I'm not aware if they're discussing that currently with the parole board.
We are hearing noises from Stewart Wilson's lawyer that they are now wondering if this can go ahead at all, given some of the restrictions that are in place. Tell me about those restrictions and things like where he won't be able to go. Trespass orders.
So, trespass orders are a different factor. The restrictions that he's got are the ones by the parole board, yes. And so they actually do restrict him from going to many areas, we understand. So the recreational areas, they've told me that he will be excluded from, and so it will appear on his GPS alert. But still, we don't have the confidence that we wanted that this GPS would actually work. What if it fails? Are the questions people are asking.
What about local businesses? You know, the Whanganui butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, if you happen to have one. If they say, no, we don't want them here, we're going to put a trespass order on, they can do that. That's their right. What if all the shop owners do that?
They can. They can. I don't know if they will. One of the things that we talked about was a argument that could happen that arose out of the community, and as a community response it seemed like a sensible one for many of those business owners. We did agree that if we failed in preventing this happening, then we would coordinate that campaign if the community wanted it.
If the shop owners, the business owners do that, as mayor, would you back that?
It's their personal choice whether they trespass anybody. They can do it now. For the council, we would have to consider what we did about that, whether we also considered a trespass order over any areas. And we're yet to discuss how that would work. Because at this moment, we're actually not accepting that this is going to happen because we've asked for a judicial review of the parole board's decision.
What stage is that at? Where's that likely to happen? Because it's a matter of, what, 14, 15 days before he's actually there. If anything's going to happen, it's going to have to happen before then. It's unlikely he's going to move there, then be moved again.
Well, that's not without precedent that can happen reasonably quickly, and we know that his lawyer is in court on Monday. We've started to prepare the information that we need for our judicial review, and we would expect that it would happen reasonably quickly.
OK, in layman's terms, in a nub, your case is founded on what? Public safety? What?
On the decision by the parole board that Whanganui was the best place for him. We were told that it was chosen because there were no victims. We know there were other places considered. We don't think that the safety of Wanganui people was taken into consideration when this decision was made. What
about the safety? I imagine there's not many people that are considering this, but Stewart Wilson himself, Michael Laws, says Wilson should feel unsafe. That sounds pretty threatening.
There have been people in our community that have said those things, and I and the police have both said that that is not the solution. That's a knee-jerk reaction to a national problem that we're faced with. There are other sex offenders in our community and in every community in New Zealand, and people aren't saying those things about them. If
this is successful from Whanganui's point of view and he does go to another city, another community, what would your advice, seriously, your advice to the mayor, the community there be?
It depends on where he would go. None of us want to send him into a neighbourhood or a street in any community in New Zealand. So I guess I would wait to see whether or not there is another option like this in New Zealand where people can feel safe from this man.
All right, thank you very much for your time, and we will watch this with interest over the next Q&A. And the panel, Raymond Miller, Willie Jackson and Rodney Hyde. We heard what the mayor had to say. They're still trying to stop this happening. Has there been an arrogance on the part of the Corrections Department, how they've handled this, Willie?
Oh, I'm not sure about that, because it's a very tough job. You know, people on the parole board, my mother was on the parole board for 20 years, you know, and they're not the most favourite people for New Zealanders. I mean, what are they meant to do? What are they meant to do? And this raises a couple of questions. One, I understand what they're saying down in Whanganui. I do understand it. This guy is the personification of evil. So it's all right for Peter Williams to say, are we a forgiving society? I mean, it's a valid question from Peter, but they're not going to his neighbourhood. You know, they're not going into Ponsonby or Herne Bay. They're going into these people's neighbourhood down there. So they're scared. They're nervous. And one thing Mum said, she always said there was 1 or 2% of these sociopaths who just can't be turned around. This guy is probably one of those people. So I understand where they're coming from. Maybe there should be a law change somewhere.
Rodney, what's your thoughts on the way Whanganui's reacted? We heard what Michael Laws said, he shouldn't feel safe. That's a pretty obvious kind of threat, isn't it?
Oh, I think it's pretty sad how they've reacted. You'd expect some leadership on this issue. Stewart Wilson clearly should be locked up forever. He's that bad. And given his lack of remorse or acceptance of what he'd done, I think that, you know, they're in a terrible situation. The law says he's got to come out. But when you look at the parole conditions, he's virtually locked up. He's just going to be locked up in a house. And I can understand their concern, but I think the leadership of Whanganui should be saying, let's get alongside corrections and let's make sure that the community is safe, rather than saying, he's not coming here, we'll shunt him off to some other community. That's what I would be expecting. I think this is bad politics.
Raymond, this is the NIMBY, though, not in my backyard, and no one's backyard wants a guy like this in it.
No, and I guess everyone's asking themselves the same question. You know, if he was being put in my street, how would I feel? And the answer is probably no one wants him. But, you know, we live in a civilised society. And a measure of a civilised society is not only the importance of protecting the citizens from people like Wilson, but also being able to treat people humanely, even when their own actions are inhumane. And this is the thing. So, I mean, he has to go somewhere. He's, in a sense, done his time in terms of his incarceration. There was not preventive detention. I mean, that would have been an obvious thing, but you can't re-sentence him. So it's finding the best way out of this. And I think it's regrettable that no one from corrections was available today, or no one from the government. I think the people of Whanganui deserve to hear from them.
So there is a possibility he may not go to Whanganui. We're talking about this going to court. He'll go somewhere.
Yes.
And we're going to be doing this all again in a fortnight's time, because he's out in, what, 15 days, I think?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, within our structures, right, in terms of Māori structures, we have these types of people. We have restorative justice. I don't know if we've had anyone this bad, to tell you the truth. This guy seems to be plain evil. But restorative justice, for instance, is based on redemption, and the society that Raymond and Rodney, the sort of society they want. And maybe we need to have a look at that, because you know, we've talked about Māori justice and Māori. You know, we have a different way of looking at things. I really feel sorry for Whanganui, because this is just terrible. But we've faced a lot of this within our structures.
The problem is, Willie, of course, he hasn't accepted any of the offers of rehabilitation.
The other thing as well, we had corrections, we had parole, we had the council, and we've had Wilson's lawyer. The government has stayed out of this. Is it time the government stepped into this somewhere?
Well, I do really think in a case like this, the government needs to exercise political leadership. And I know they can say, well, OK, this all began a long time ago, it's not in our watch. That's true enough, but there'll be communities around the country who will be unsettled by all of this. And I think it's important for the government to explain quite what is necessary with respect not just to Wilson, but to other dangerous criminals who are released from jail.
How do you think this will play out, Rodney?
Oh, I think he'll be there in 16 days or whenever it is. And I can understand the government's reluctance, because, you know, some of those meetings look pretty ropey. But at the end of the day, what are the Whanganui people looking for? They're looking for a reassurance that this guy's going to be held safe. And I think that requires the government fronting up, corrections fronting up, and explaining, here's what we've got in place, here's how we're going to keep you safe. Right. And let's face it, this guy ain't going to get a date.
He's not going to get away unless he's a secret agent or something.
He ain't going to get a date.
I mean, they're all over him.
Yeah, but who wants to take that risk, of course? All right, to all three of you, thank you very much.